Today, my guest today has presented to some of the world's most effective leaders and business developers, including multi-billion dollar manufacturers, top service providers, and yes, associations. His clients include literally all of the Fortune 500, from American Express and ExxonMobil to Verizon and Walmart, and 25% of his business is associations, including Association of School Business Officials International, that's a mouthful, Credit Union National Association, and the National Safety Council. He's an Amazon #1 best-selling author who has spoken on 5 continents and has been featured in Forbes and Inc. magazines. He is also a former professional stand-up comedian and a former Fortune 500 leader who's developed and marketed products that are still being sold in 30 countries. His expertise is in personal influence and how that relates to business. And I want us to thank and welcome Garrison Wynn for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Cue the claps, the applause. Yes. Okay. So Garrison, right now we are talking tonight at a very important time because the American Society of Association Executives, they're having their annual meeting at this very moment. So this is a very important association industry conference. And we also have IMEX that's coming up soon, very important conference in the events industry. And so we have association leaders and event planners everywhere who are probably dying to find out how to make the absolute most of these very important conferences because they're expensive in time, money, you're out of the office and travel. And maybe more importantly, this is where major business and relationship building is done every year. So first of all, what do the most influential association leaders do differently in their approach to conferences like these?
Well, we looked at a lot of research and also did some of our own research and asking questions. So we are fortunate we partner with Gallup and Harvard Review, get that kind of information. And there's some stuff specific to your industry that's actually done, believe it or not. And it's actually specific to you guys. So one of the things is that they're the top people in your industry the leaders are very good at getting the top people in the industry to show up. I've noticed it too. Sometimes you go to a convention and the top 3 or 4 companies in the entire industry aren't there. You have all kinds of people. I spoke at a convention that had 40 sponsors, and because the top 3 or 4 people who could write the big check never showed. So the people who are really good at being successful, influential, can get those top people to show up. And sometimes it means you have to make up an award, give them the revenue award, the most revenue, or give them the impact in the industry award. What we thought was interesting was we heard a lot of this. People actually just going in, making appointments, showing up and sitting down and saying, hey, what would it take you? You are #1, generating the most revenue with the most impact in our industry, and you don't come to the convention. What would it take to get you there? What would it take? Just sitting down and asking those kinds of questions. You'd be surprised. Sometimes they have a misnomer. Sometimes they worry about competition or whatever it is. But to sit down, and we found the association executives who were willing to do that were extremely successful. So that was the first thing that we saw, for sure. The other thing is that who actually attends the conference, knowing who really, who are they and what do they value most? And I was selected at a conference one time to speak, and I do associations every month, and I noticed that they were talking about leadership. I said, great. That's what I talk about, a lot about leadership. And then I noticed they were talking about owners, all about owners. So we want, Garrison, your talk to focus on owners. Okay, well, let's do a little research to find out historically who the audience really is. It turns out 7% are owners, only 7%. And sometimes it's hard for a speaker to hit a home run or to really make the conference fit for people if you don't know who's really there. And though the owners have a lot of influence, you have lunch with them, you talk to them, we want to cater to those owners. But if 93% are not owners, you might want to be focused on people who run those businesses, managers and people around that area, whatever the VP team, whatever it is. And so I did that. And of course, it went very, very well because I do focus on that. But it's something we actually forget. The other thing is like who's in attendance. And that leads us to Gen Y, Gen Z, and all these different generations. Now, people talk a lot about Gen Z, but I want to say the truth about Gen Z. Half of them are now in middle school.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're probably,
Right.
they're not there quite.
Right.
Right.
A senior Gen Z, I'm talking about just an old timer Gen Z. Like I'm a
Old-timer, like 20.
senior Gen Z, right? They're sick of Pokemon. Pokemon is the past. They're sick of
Right.
They are 24 and 23.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're there. If you're really lucky, you got 8% Gen Z, means you're doing something right to attract young people. Maybe another 15, 16% are Gen Y. So maybe a quarter of your conference is under 35 years old. That's, unless your conference is specifically focused on young people, that's really what you're seeing. And those are good numbers. I speak at conventions all the time. They got 5% of anybody under 30. So because that's the fact, we want to make sure you don't cater everything towards people who aren't actually there yet. However, we want to make sure we know what they want. And what they really want is hands-on stuff. Now, we know the research in Gen Z says, unlike Gen Y, they want someone who's going to be there all the time. They want a leader who actually is going to collaborate with them and be kind of an active, not an autocrat, but someone who's there with them. And they also, they don't like the open spaces and all that. Gen Z, unlike Gen Y, they like to do some stuff on their own, and then they want to socialize. So I'm going to spend time on my own. And then when social time comes, I want the face-to-face with my peers and people. And when it comes to conferences,
right,
found it was about breaks. They have a tendency to wait in the wings and not attend breakout sessions at all and spend the time hanging out with their friends. So they'll go to the keynote sessions and don't attend the breakouts. And as you know, some of those breakouts have very valuable information. Right. It's the meat and potatoes of many conferences. It's the breakout. So the recommendation would be based on that if you want to appear to be more Gen Z friendly. And that's to go ahead and just 30-minute breaks in between sessions and 1.5 hours stretches maximum. And just so you know, we found out that a lot of people want that. They want more face time. As a matter of fact, the research showed that the number one reason that the most loyal attendees are attending every single year, no matter what the age, is to see their friends.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I'm missing ASAE annual for the first time since 2007. Yeah. And it'd been a while before that since I had missed one. So like I go every single year, and while I know that there's great education that's going on in the breakout sessions, the thing that's killing me the most is getting together with everybody, my peers, and getting to that opportunity to meet people. And I know that there's that lost opportunity because I'm not right there.
Right.
So for the people who are there, they've listened to what you've said, and they're like, okay, so I'm in the thick of it now. I'm already here. Like there's no changing what's happening right now. What is something that somebody who's listening to this can do to really optimize their experience based on your exploration and expertise and leadership?
Well, as far as leadership is concerned, what we find is the most effective leaders, most influential leaders are very good at making people feel valuable. Yeah. And if you make people feel valuable, they'll value you. As you know, employee retention in keeping and finding employees is the number one concern of people who are attending conferences. If you're an owner or a manager, that's your biggest issue. And so that concept is huge. So if you make people feel valuable, show them how their existing knowledge, what they already know now, is valuable before you give them a new idea. So if you want to influence people and get them to accept your idea or believe in what you have to offer, you just can't have a better idea. Good ideas aren't good enough. No offense, but the world's full of good ideas. You have to let the people know that you already believe what they already know. Their existing knowledge is valuable. Once they believe that, then you can explain your point, show them your way, Yeah. And if I'm a leader at a conference right now, I am concerned about finding and keeping employees. And I would say that finding employees is very, very tough. It's getting tougher in 2019. When I speak at conventions, I do 85 events a year. I would say right now, half of all of that is employee retention and being the kind of leaders people want to work for.
Wow.
The other thing is about Gen Z and Gen Y in general, and this has never happened before. And I don't know why more people aren't talking. Taboo topic, and that is that 40% of Gen Y and Gen Z aren't looking for a job. It's never happened before. They're not looking. They've got a credit card and a car. and they don't need a job.
That's
And
so crazy because eventually they will, right?
Well,
Right?
with the gig economy right now, you can be 21 years old. You can drive for Uber and make $1,000, $1,500 a week. You can also the gig economy. You deliver packages for whoever, and there are people who just want to be in that gig economy. And if you think I'm kidding, go to Starbucks or any coffee shop right now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and look who's in there. It's packed with 25-year-olds and 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds, and they're on their laptops. They're not looking for a job. Now, the other thing is that means that we're in a talent war.
Mm-hmm.
We got 6.1 million people looking for 7.1 million jobs. I'm sorry. We got 6.1 million people. That's right, looking for 7.1 million jobs. So there's a huge problem.
Wow.
And it's
crazy.
every area. But right now, you have welders who are making $175,000 a year as a welder. 65-year-old welders that get called every day. Can you please come back? But it's every industry. I've got a list of industries right here today. Financial advisors, they need more of those. Personal care providers, nurse practitioners. The list goes on and on. And oddly enough, application software developers don't have enough of those as well. And I think that if I am an association leader, that I want to do two things. One, I might need to talk more about the importance of having a full-time job, not just here's the job or here's the industry or why our industry is great and important, but maybe why you would actually want a full-time job to begin with, step one, and then why our industry is a good bet for you.
That's so fascinating because that is a discussion that I don't hear it. I don't see it happening out there, like anywhere. Like it seems like no one's interested in talking about this, but I bet that everyone's fascinated to find out how should I be living my life and what's a better approach maybe for me and the way that I conduct my career.
Right.
For you and for me and for those of us who maybe are not those 25-year-olds that are hanging out in Starbucks, we think, well, of course, of course, this is just obvious, a consideration that you need to think about. But I don't know that it's obvious. And that's why it is important to talk about. That's so fascinating.
When I spoke to a large grocers association, National Grocers Association, and out in California, and they said they have employees that will work for 4 hours and quit. And the reason for that is they didn't know what a job was. So they've not been taught. And I've been talking to school boards around the country. I'm speaking to school boards actually next week.
Wow.
And it's about kids getting out of high school and not understanding what work actually is, not understanding that when you go to work, that the priority is someone else's and not yours. And so I'm going to give you a fictitious character. We'll call him 21-year-old Landon or Brandon. Landon or Brandon. And this is what Landon said. He goes, yeah, Scott, I really didn't know that someone else's priorities were above mine like the whole day. Like I thought that maybe like there are parts of the day where I would have the priority. Yeah. Yep.
Wow. I just never that's so crazy and incredible. And so you have information like this, though. You pull this information about how the generations are working together and considerations. That's one of the things that you talk about a lot.
It is. I do talk about generational differences, but what I talk the most about is the overall concept is what is it that influential people do that make them so influential? And one thing is to know exactly who they're dealing with and what they value and what they believe, and not the myth. And, the worst leadership strategy on earth is wishing people were like you. That's like the worst thing because that's called. They're not going to be like you.
I have to give up on my dream.
Right. That's right. But the other thing is not to blame them. You can't blame Z. You can't blame Y because anybody in their situation would be the same way. They were positioned and I'm not saying that anybody's entitled, but little babies aren't born entitled. That baby's entitled. No, there's no such thing as an entitled baby. So whatever happened. And we are responsible for that. So if you want to know who's responsible for the generation, it's the one, that came before it. The other thing is it's important to keep in mind, and that is, it makes perfect sense. If I could work 2 or 3 days a week and make money, if I didn't have to go to work every day, maybe I would do that. I mean, I'm looking back at myself, and when I was 25, when I was right out of college, the gig economy appealed to me back then, and it didn't actually, nobody said gig economy back then, but it really appealed to me to do that. And I did some of that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said, but also this group coming along, Z, is different from Y because they want money and benefits more than experience. And Gen Y wants that experience, but the Gen Z people, you're going to have to pay them.
Right.
And not only that, you're going to have to collaborate with them as leaders. You're going to have to, it's a research that I saw. We got very lucky. I can't name the companies, but got to see the exit interviews for thousands and thousands of people in multiple industries. And 76% of people under the age of 30 said, my boss didn't talk to me. My boss didn't communicate with me. I never see my boss. Where's my boss? I quit because no one was paying attention to me. My boss.
That's so fascinating, and probably something that we definitely need to think about more while we're working in these, offering these flexible office situations, flexible schedules, and so much teleworking, where you're working from home. And so you think that this is all great and the benefits are great and you're able to have more of a work-life balance, but you need to make sure that you're communicating, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you can't be helicopter parents and then expect them not to feel like they want somebody there collaborating all the time.
Oh my God.
I mean, yeah, so that's what's happened. But again, I'm very impressed with, it's easy to say, oh, we got a lot of people sitting on the couch playing Xbox, smoking weed, and you can make all those jokes about that. Right. And I just said they're at the coffee shop and they're not looking for a job. And I got a credit card in a car, and parents, I live at home. I'm going to live at home until my parents move out and I get the house. That's the plan. Right. So, right. But the truth is,
my parents die. No.
Right. Why are my parents still here? I need the house. But I think the reality is that we have some hardworking young people. I've got some young people that work for me that are in their 20s that are impressive and dedicated and focused. And I do believe we have to embrace them. We need them. There are no more new young people. These are them. That's who we have to work with. And I'm telling you, I think they do a fantastic job. It's just they have a lot of options. Right. And when they've got that many options, boy, your option better be good. There's an old saying that people are just as loyal as their options. You ever hear that, right?
Yes.
Well, the key is to be one of the options. You got to make sure you're actually one of those options. And I just think that, and we got some smart young people. I mean, very smart. A lot of stuff has happened in the last 5 years of people who are 19 to 26 years old that have developed a lot of stuff for the future. And do keep in mind that every team is not complete without older and younger people. I mean, if everybody in your team looks just like you, you're on a crappy team. That's a terrible thing,
Diversity in age is
absolutely important. What I was going to say that I think is not said enough these days is Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, Benjamin Franklin, Tesla, Edison, you name it, all have one thing in common. They came up with their best ideas before age 27. Yeah. So what that means is that your team has to have young people. You need them, and you're going to have to deal with them as best you can. And they're not you, and they're not going to be you.
Yeah. Thank you for just putting it out there, because I feel like a lot of times, people dance around tough situations where it's like, I don't want to, but you're saying, you know what? They're not going to be you, and you need to figure out what makes them, what motivates them, how they are different, so that you can figure out the best way to manage them and the best way to get the best outcome.
Right. So we need to sell them on full-time jobs. You want to win this talent war. You want to make sure that you got the people you need. Sell them on here's why a full-time job is good. Here's why you need it. And here's why our industry, here's where our association is a good bet to put you in that direction. Absolutely.
I love it. Okay. So everyone who's watching this, if you are at ASAE Annual and you're getting ready to go to the receptions tonight and you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I've heard Garrison and Kiki talking about this. You now have some talking points where you can go and have some really meaty conversations. Garrison, if people want to find out more about you, having you come and speak to their groups, having you come and train their groups, what can they do? Where do they go?
They can go to garrisonwynn.com. That's GarrisonWynn.com. Go to the website. They can also contact us at 1-800-833-2902. And I'm out there everywhere. So I'm at conferences every month. And so come see me. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Everyone, I'm going to, wherever you see this posted, I'm going to go through and add the links that Garrison just shared with us so that you can have an easier way to access his great intellect and information and experience. Garrison, thank you again so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Everyone at ASAE Annual, have a great rest of the conference and watch for more great updates and information from Association Chat. We're going to continue to come to you live with new reports and interviews galore. So have a great time, everyone, and have a great night.
We have to be real. Number one is we have to have young people, and there are no more new young people. These are them. That's it. That's what you got. And that means I have to accept you. So I want to, we'd accept each other. Like I have to accept the fact when we go and have lunch at a business meeting that you're going to stare at your phone. I'm going to say, Hillary, come on. Hey, come on. You're going to go, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Garrison. Oh, no. That's what's going to happen. Okay? We have to be realistic. I need you, and I need you. There is no future without young people. If I'm going to influence someone, I've got to influence them, their kids, the people around them. I've got to have a relationship with those admins that may be 25 and 30. I've got to have all those relationships. And every single person makes a contribution. Do not count out any generation. Absolutely.
Reminds me of this story. There's a guy driving down the freeway. He's in Los Angeles, and the traffic is horrible in LA. Traffic is just terrible. Cars are coming at him. His wife calls on the cell phone. Honey, be careful. I'm watching the news. They say there's a crazy man going the wrong way down the freeway. He goes, no, honey, there's thousands of them. Sometimes it's you, that's all. So
The worst leadership strategy is wishing people were like you. You can't do it. I mean, you're just not like me. And I can't manage you like I can manage you. I can shame Frank. I can say, Frank, you screwed up, Frank. Yeah. Mrs. Davis is a little bit on fire, and that is not okay. She's kind of on fire. We can't set the customers on fire, Frank. It's not good. It's bad for business. And Frank's like, you're right, Garrison, I can't do that. I can shame him. I can't shame you, right? If I say, hey, you screwed up, you're like, well, but I'm still awesome. But I'm still awesome. Still awesome. Yeah. So I have to say this, and it's Amy, right? I have to say, Amy, listen, I hired you because the other person I was going to hire was not as good as you. You were by far the best person that we could find for that job when we hired you. What I don't want to do is to get rid of you and go hire them and have someone who's not as good as you are, who's not as awesome as you are, have your job.
So when you take a look at all the research, we saw some stuff from Accenture and some stuff from the Harvard Review and the stuff we partnered with Gallup, and we looked at all this stuff. And what just kept rising to the top of everything is that, people who felt heard and felt listened to, those are the people you could influence. They were more willing to do things. They were on your side more often, and they would also really support you even though you weren't 100% correct. They wanted you to be right. Think about the people in your life that listen to what you say on a consistent basis, how much influence they have over you.
Because there's an old saying, you can't change people. Oh, you absolutely can, yes. But you can only change them by taking a look at how your behavior triggers their behavior. If you're willing to take a look at that, you have gigantic influence.